Hello, welcome back to the channel. So this is part of my solar journey story, but it's not actually revolving around solar. This is actually revolving, this video will actually talk about my electric vehicle and also charging that. And you may see from the title that you think this might be a bit clickbaity, that about saying that the council doesn't care. You may see the evidence I present in this and just think that the council are just massively incompetent. Or you might actually just think that it's a mixture of both, that the council doesn't care and is incompetent. And I should also stress that this video is not just me ranting. It's meant to be a more informative video than that. It's meant to be also a helpful video. So I will suggest ways that the council can improve, and if they are actually caring and competent, they might actually watch the video and start engaging with the public on this sort of thing. I should also point out that I did message the council and the council leader saying that I was doing this video and haven't had a response back. So obviously they don't mind that I'm basically going to be ripping them apart for a section of this video. I've also told them that I would be sharing this on all these Facebook pages and sending it to the local news press such as Wales Online. So let's start talking about what the problem is here. So in 2030, the British government has said that they are going to stop the sales of fuel cars. So basically you're going to have to buy electric. There is a few provisos, you can buy a plug-in hybrid and stuff like that, but it's mainly going to be electric. And electric car sales are increasing year on year within the UK. You can see that in any of the data. There are a number of perceived problems with electric vehicles, and there's also a number of problems with electric vehicles. So these problems involve, first of all, that electric vehicles are high cost. There is some sort of general public perception about the reliability of them. There is worry about how you charge them, so the cost of charging and how you charge them. So, and then there's also things about the safety of them. So whether they're just going to catch fire. Again, the stats on that show that actually electric cars are less likely to catch fire than a petrol car. But that's just some of the things that people have in mind. So weirdly enough, the Swansea Council, along with Pembrokeshire Council, I think it was Carmarthen Council, have recently put out a Twitter post with a survey on it, which asks basically what people think of electric cars, or what's holding them back from buying them, and ask them these questions. I'm not entirely sure why, because the data is already available. People already know. There's already a load of surveys out there why people aren't buying electric cars and what their worries are. And asking people to rank them is almost meaningless as well, because first of all, the council doesn't have control over some of the factors, like the price of the car. And secondly, it doesn't matter if one factor is bigger than the others or slightly bigger than the others, because you have to address all of them at once, so you shouldn't just focus on one. So it seems that the council is just wasting money and time, and they might be just doing this as a way of saying they are engaging with electric car vehicle drivers and potential owners. But when you actually look at it, it's more of a token gesture. It's not actually doing anything. As I say, it's just wasting time and money. So, as I say, the council doesn't have much control over certain aspects, things like reliability. One of the ways of promoting the reliability is actually spending more investment on electric cars from the companies to improve their reliability, if there is a problem with reliability in the first place. And again, the council has no control over that. But the way to show that electric cars are more reliable is to actually get more people owning them, and therefore people will see that they are reliable. Things like the cost of an electric car as well. Obviously the initial outlay is much higher, but again the council doesn't have any control over the pricing of electric cars, so it shouldn't really be worrying about it. What it does have control over is the public charging infrastructure, which I'll come on to a bit later, and I suppose slightly about the cost of charging as well. What I should also say is that all these things I've mentioned are not independent of each other. They are linked. So if more people get electric cars, then there's more companies will provide the charging infrastructure for them. If more people see that they're reliable, then more people will buy electric cars. So it's actually circular. So you really just need to address all. You can addressing one of or two of the factors that you have the control of will actually affect all the others as well. So let's talk about the actual charging, which is one of the main problems. So I've got an electric vehicle. I bought it back in July, and the main problem I have is that I haven't got a driveway, so I can't charge it at home. So I'll talk about that a bit later on. But first of all, I'm going to just talk about the reasons for home charging. So the Welsh Assembly, or Welsh Government, whatever you want to call them, released a roadmap for the plans for electric vehicles and charging, and I'll link it down below in the description. And in that roadmap, it says the best way of charging is home charging. And there's a number of reasons for this. It's the most convenient for the electric car driver, and it's the cheapest. And also, this is not mentioned in the report, so there's reasons from out this. The home charging also can, as I'll talk about, can facilitate better public charging. It also can facilitate, as I say, it's cheaper for the people, but it also means that more money then goes into the economy. And also, quite importantly, if you can all one of the main problems with home charging that I'll talk about is not being able to charge without a drive, which is actually a discriminatory policy. It discriminates against those on lower incomes, and therefore should be addressed immediately. And I'll come on to that as well. So let's think about why home charging is best. So with home charging, you have a charge point installed at your home. You then plug your car in and it charges. So the reason why this is more convenient for people is because when you get back from work, you can plug it in and you can go about your evening at home. If you haven't got that, you have to drive to somewhere to charge and then spend time there and then come home. So you're taking away that sort of family time, that quality of living, I suppose, is the best way to think about this. As I say, it also saves money and puts money back into the economy. So if you have a EV charging tariff, something like the Octopus Go tariff, or any of these sort of Economy 7 tariffs, which basically gives you a period of cheaper electricity during the day. So I'm going to use Octopus Go because I know about that, because I'm hoping that once my current tariff finishes in 2024, I'll have a home charger and therefore be able to take advantage of this. But with Octopus Go, what they have is a 4-hour period from about midnight to 4 in the morning, where electricity is 7.5p per kilowatt hour, and then during the rest of the day it's at a normal rate. So you can get really cheap charging from it. So to try and give you an example of how much you can save and the effects of this is, I used to own a Hyundai i40 diesel, and it would do about 50 miles per gallon, which means at about current prices of about between £1.70 and £1.90 per litre of diesel, it would cost about 18p per mile. So bear that number in mind. A reasonably efficient electric vehicle will do about 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which means that if you're on that, it might go up to about 4 miles per kilowatt hour depending on what the conditions are and what time of year it is. But that would mean that if you divide that 7.5 by that range per kilowatt hour, you're talking about a couple of pence per mile. So it's a huge saving, really, considering how many miles you would do a year on diesel. However, there is a major problem with this, that if you can't charge at home, you have to use the public charging network. And Swansea Council, as I said, this is really an argument for them being incompetent, have really messed up, I think is the best way to describe this. So they have installed electric EV chargers in some of their council car parks, in the Marina Quarter, in the Park and Rides on Fabian Way, and in by the Liberty Stadium. And they are Clenergy. These are actually quite slow chargers. They're 7 kilowatt ones, so they're basically the equivalent of what you would get at home. And they are currently charging £1 per kilowatt hour, which is, 25 to 30p to 30p a mile. To put that in perspective, that's the same as a top-of-the-range Range Rover with a really powerful engine, which is a real gas guzzler. It's a complete and utter rip-off, and you won't get anybody buying EVs if that's how much it's going to cost to run them, when you consider the extra cost in the first place. So, from that point of view, it's nearly double the price of being able to charge. It's almost double the price of diesel at the higher range of that. If you had an efficient diesel, that would do 50 miles per gallon. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind, is just the cost of the charging. Even if you could go to something that was on the price cap, which is currently about 35p, you're still paying a huge amount more than you would do on the Octopus Go. So I'll give you an example of this. If you plugged in for, say, 4 hours during that cheap period, and you can set chargers to actually charge during just that time, you would pay for 28 kilowatt hours roughly £2, which would give you in a range about 90 to 100, just over 100 miles, depending on your car. If you were to plug in at 35p per kilowatt hour into, say, a public charging network, you would pay over £9. So that's a £7 saving. If you went for sort of the more rapid chargers, because you don't want to stay in a car park for 4 hours, then, say, a 50 kilowatt hour charger, something like GridServe or InstaVolt, you're paying 66p a kilowatt hour, which means you get a saving about £14. I'm not going to take into account the council ones because those are just ridiculous prices. But also Genie which is a rapid charger, has also charging £1 per kilowatt hour. So that's a huge saving if you're just charging once a week. So I think an average person would probably on a week do about 100 miles, which is a 28 kilowatt hour charge. So that £7 can go into people's pockets in Swansea, which means they can then spend it on the local economy. It's this idea now of, I'm not going to be bashing big companies and their profits, but if you did charge with an energy company, what you're doing is actually giving that money to that energy company, and then they're going to either have it in profits, which are going to send out dividends. They're making big profits at the moment, and they don't pay that much tax either. So you're sending money away from the local economy. If you saved, say, just that £7 yourself, what could you do with that? You could go down to your local pub and have a couple of pints. And again, I'm not going to condone, this is not an advertising to drink drive or anything, but it's just an example of what you can do. The UK is heading for a recession. You want to try and keep as much money with the people and in the local economy as possible to stop businesses going out of business. And Swansea has a real problem with empty businesses at the moment. There's loads of empty retail units around Swansea. The council should be trying to support any way getting people to go to businesses, spend money in there, so less of them shut down. So that's something that is really important to consider with this. And also if we think about that £7 saving a week, that's over £350 a year. That's what the government is giving to households to help with their energy bills at the moment. You could almost double the support of that by having home charging. Another advantage of the home charging is something called co-charge. So people can register their home charger on co-charge, which basically means it's a public charger. It means that once you're registered on it, your point basically gets shown, and if it's not being used by you, you can allow other people to use it and charge them for using it. So you can either charge them just your rate of electricity, which would be very nice of you, or you can add a bit of profit onto that to pay for the maintenance of the charger, or just put the money into your own pocket. Again, that's supporting the local economy. It's basically a good idea. Swansea Council have recently made a big hoo-ha about them installing 12 electric charge points around Mumbles and Langland on this side, a whole 12 of them. If you allowed people without driveways to have chargers, and just on my road alone, which is not very big, it's only got about 15 houses on it, and everybody on here who hasn't, only one house I think has a driveway. All the other ones, if you allowed them to have a charger and they put them on co-charge, you would have more chargers than the whole of Swansea have managed to install. That's a big difference. So why do I say that this is a discriminatory policy, that people aren't allowed to charge without a driveway? So this comes down to an act, I think from 1984, I think it's called, where you're not allowed to basically run trailing cables across a public highway, which includes pavements. So if you don't have a driveway or off-road parking, you would need to run a cable across a pavement, which would cause a trip hazard. What we have to bear in mind, first of all, is that 33% of people in Britain don't have a driveway, and that rises to 66% of people in cities. And also, people who tend not to have driveways are people who live in things like terrace houses, and a lot of those in the Swansea valleys. And also, the houses without driveways tend to be the cheap houses, which people on lower incomes tend to live in. So this is why it's a discriminatory policy, because you're effectively saying, because you have a low income and therefore you haven't got a house with a driveway, you have to take your car, go and plug it in and charge it somewhere else, paying a premium rate, taking time to do that, and take time away from family, and actually reduce the quality of your life. So that's why it's a discriminatory policy. So this is why it needs to be addressed immediately. Luckily, there are ways of charging without a driveway. Unfortunately, with all my interactions with Swansea Council, and I've emailed them multiple times and only had a few responses, and they've been pretty inadequate responses, have pretty much shown that which I think pretty much shows that the council doesn't care, doesn't want to interact with this sort of thing, have basically said they've just basically ignored me, or tried to put forward problems with these solutions, which, if they've looked into it in better detail, would have seen that they're not problems at all. So let's talk about the solutions of this. So on the screen now is a cable protector. So in theory, you could run your cable along the pavement, and you could put one of these over the top of it. Swansea Council haven't actually replied to any of my emails about this actual method of doing this, but I'm assuming they're going to say it's a trip hazard or they're not safe in some way. Which is odd, because as you'll see in the link below and across the bottom of the screen now, this is the website for a council in Hampshire where they allow it, and they think it's perfectly safe. There's a few provisos. The cable protector has to be the same width as the pavement, and it has to be rubberized, to be anti-slip and stuff like that. But it's a really easy, simple solution. And these cable protectors cost about £30. It's not exactly an expensive investment compared to the electric car and the charge point. So why doesn't Swansea Council allow this? No idea, because they won't answer the emails, because, as I say, they're either incompetent or they don't care. What other solutions are there? So on the screen now, I'm going to show Kerbo and Gully. So Kerbo, I think, is fairly new, but basically what they do is they carve out a little trench in the pavement, which the cable can run along, and there's a little closing mechanism over the top. So it removes the trip hazard. It also prevents a ramp, but stops any ramping or anything like that. So it's a good general solution. So the Gully system is actually being used in Oxford at the moment. And again, I've looked online and I found basically the Gully closure system, which is basically those bristles and basically a guttering system. And again, that's about £35 plus probably some installation fee, which you might have to get from the council. So again, this could be a very, very sensible solution and cheap to do. And from a council's point of view, the council would have to give permission for you just to modify the curb, but they have already processes in line for that to do in things like drop curbs, and they could make a little bit of money by charging you a fee for doing the processing of this. And I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. At a time of what looks like austerity too, the council is going to be lacking money, so getting some money in is probably going to be a good idea. Again, council get your act together and be sensible. The final type of solution, so this is charge arm and charge bridge. Again, same general principle for both of them. It's a gantry that extends up and when the cable's in use, extends over the pavement at about a height of 2.5 meters and allows you to then plug it in over the top. So again, removes that trip hazard. The charge bridge is again fairly new, and their website isn't very good. I have put links down below. However, charge arm is a Netherlands based invention and has been used there. And the UK distributor, which is We Will Power Your Car, I think, again I'll put the link down below, I've actually spoken to them, and there's a woman there that I'm dealing with called Carly, who is very, very keen to actually speak to Swansea Council. And I've asked the council to actually contact them and basically have a chat, because this is where I said I've had an email back from somebody called Matt Bower in the council, again somebody who doesn't then reply to his emails, who saying they want to have a chat with you, get in contact. They haven't got in contact with the company, because in my emails, eventually he got back to me after one of the councillors, my local councillor, Lib Dem councillor, basically prompted a load of emails back to them, suggesting the charge arm looks a very sensible solution. And basically in his thing he was talking about like the safety of the height and stuff. These are 2.5 metres, they're the same height as awnings. They've gone through all the safety checks. There are other councils starting to use them and going through that process. He could phone up this company, she could speak to Carly. The CEO is even willing to make himself available for a chat to actually talk through all his concerns. But again, the council hasn't done it. In another email, the council did say that they're employing some form of specialist consultants to look into all of this sort of stuff. I did email the council asking who the specialist consultants were, and they didn't get back to me. But I'm assuming they're paying them quite a lot of money, and these consultants haven't spoken to this firm either. So where is this money going? Is the council again wasting money? So these solutions are out there if the council was willing to engage with them. The council keeps going on referencing some sort of strategy thing, which will come into act in about 3 or 5 years, according to some sources, which is way too long in the future and not really necessary. There should be a strategy on public charging, absolutely, but there's no reason to lump everything in together. You could quite easily allow people to home charge, because the council actually has control of the planning permission for that act from 1984, so they can just sign and override that if they wanted to, which is what other councils have done. So if they were serious about getting people into electric vehicles, improving people's health, improving the economy, that's what they're doing. I should probably just finish this video by explaining what other types of public chargers are. So people have said about sort of just charging stations, things like at garages. There is major problems with that. First of all, you are at the whim of the electricity prices at the time. So as I say, things like that Clenergy just ramped their prices up from 34p per kilowatt hour to £1 overnight. In fairness to them, they did send an email out to anybody registered with them who uses them. You have to use an app to use their chargers, saying they advise people not to use them. But basically you're at the whim of whatever people want to charge for it. You're also at the whim of the actual company themselves. I know a councillor has spoken to Shell, and they said, oh no, we won't put a charger in the Sketty forecourt at the petrol station, because Sketty isn't affluent enough. Sketty is one of the most affluent areas in Swansea. So what does that tell you what it's going to do with the rest of Swansea? Obviously the council can install public chargers, but they will only be on council car parks where you have to pay for the car park as well. It also costs the council an extraordinarily high amount of money to put these chargers in. So again, home charging, co-charge, far better than that. Save the council money. There are companies that do lamppost chargers. Basically, they take a lamppost and turn it into a charger and keep the lamppost functionality. Again, problems with this. You're again at the price. You're at the mercy of the prices of the electricity they're willing to charge. Some lampposts in Swansea only work at night, so they don't get power at night, so you won't be able to charge it during the day. The infrastructure is old, so does the lamppost actually have the ability to take a 7 kilowatt charger? Probably not. So again, you have to spend a lot of money on that and digging up the streets. It is a solution, but it's, as I say, it's not a great solution to have. And also, I suppose I should really point out, just stress on the grid. If people are coming home just plugging into public chargers, home chargers, and also lamppost chargers, you're putting a huge strain on the grid. This again, where home chargers become useful, because they now have been be smart. They can stagger when they turn on, or you can just set them to turn on in the middle of the night when demand on the grid is low. So you take that pressure off the grid. It also means that people with solar panels, and there are an increasing number of people getting solar panels, it's been shown in BBC News articles, that certain chargers can register how much solar you're producing and send the excess to your charger. So you can charge your car off the excess of your solar, which would also mean that you take that pressure off the grid and you get really cheap charging then as well. So I suppose in sum up for this video, the council really does need to pull up his trousers, I suppose might be a phrase to use. Stop dragging his feet, actually engage. So what you can do is actually email your local councillor. I'll put a link to all the councillors, to the council website, which links your councillor, and ask them to push some pressure on the council to actually do something right. As I say, I have messaged the Swansea Council leader, which is Rob Stewart, sorry, that's it, and he hasn't got back to me. I have spoken to some other councillors, so ones from my local area, which are Lib Dem, and they are going to be posing a question at the December council meeting. One thing that people are a little bit worried about is Swansea is a Labour council. It's run by Labour, and if motions get proposed by other parties, whether the Labour councillors are just going to try playing politics rather than acting in the best interests of the people that have elected them. So I would probably please just impress on those Labour councillors: don't play politics. Do something that will improve the quality of lives for the people in Swansea, and just do what's right for once. So, bit of a downer to the end of this video, but hopefully you've taken all this on board. And next week, back to normal with my solar journey as I review the Carl Stein infrared heater that I bought. Anyway, thank you for watching, and as I say, please help Swansea improve by seeing if we can get home chargers installed for people without driveways.